All right, so research management, it's a career path that sparks a lot of questions.
Right.
Who wouldn't want to be the one kind of, orchestrating those groundbreaking discoveries?
It's more than just a job title, that's for sure.
Exactly. And that's why we're diving deep into RoleCatcher's insights today. To really go beyond the surface, we're not just talking about what the job description says, but what it really takes to not just survive, but thrive as a research manager.
And one thing I appreciate about RoleCatcher is they get that it's not just about, crunching numbers or managing budgets. It's about that fire in your belly,
Yeah.
that passion for innovation.
Yes, that comes through so strongly in this guy. They really captured that essence. Like instead of just saying oversee research, which could mean anything, they talk about leading the development of new technologies or therapies.
Right.
It's like suddenly you're not just a manager, you're at the forefront shaping the future.
Right. And that leadership aspect, it's huge because the guide digs into what that actually means. Like you've got to develop research proposals, right? But that's not just about knowing the science. It's about like the strategic side of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Understanding the landscape. Like they specifically mentioned personalized medicine.
Yeah.
A research manager in that field, they've got to be on top of not just the science, but the regulations, the ethics, the whole 9 yards. It's a whole other animal.
That's such a good point because it made me think about those sectors RoleCatcher highlights, where the demand is booming for research managers. They mentioned the usual suspects, of course, chemical, technical, life sciences.
Yeah.
But they don't stop there. Like they have this whole section on how automation is transforming manufacturing. Research managers with expertise in robotics, AI, all of that, they're going to be highly sought after because companies, they need to stay ahead of the curve. It's all about anticipating the future of the industry and having the vision to lead the charge.
And that's where those career stages they outline come into play. They do a really good job of showing you that progression, Starting maybe as a research assistant, you're in the lab mastering those techniques.
Right.
But then you work your way up and you could become a senior research manager, presenting those findings at international conferences, securing those big grants for your team. The skills needed, they change dramatically as you move up that ladder.
And speaking of skills, it struck me how specific the guide gets about the technical know-how needed at each stage. Like, even as a research associate, you might be expected to be proficient in specific software, like R or SPSS. These tools, they're essential for data analysis, drawing conclusions. It shows how hands-on this role can be, even from the get-go.
Absolutely. And as you climb that ladder, the technical skills, they become even more specialized. I mean, I thought this phrase was interesting. They talk about managing personnel resources. Now, that might sound kind of, corporate-y, but think about it. You're not just managing projects, you're managing people, each with their own expertise, their own goals, and let's face it, their own quirks.
It's like you're conducting an orchestra, but instead of instruments, you're trying to harmonize the talents of all these brilliant minds. Right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure those minds, they don't always agree.
Oh, for sure.
Deadlines get moved around, equipment breaks down.
That's where those example profiles they give really come to life. They show you how research managers need a whole toolbox of skills, not just the technical stuff. Like they have this one senior research manager in the pharmaceutical industry. And yeah, they're a whiz in their field, but they're also a master negotiator.
Oh, wow.
Working with all these different stakeholders, maybe navigating intellectual property rights. It's a lot.
It makes you realize there's so much information coming at them from all sides. Conferences, publications, industry trends, you name it.
And that's not even counting internal research, competitor analysis, the mountain of scientific literature that's always growing.
It really is a juggling act.
It is.
And that's where I think that knowledge and learning section, it really hit home for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about being smart, it's about that constant drive to learn, to adapt, to expand your knowledge base because things change so quickly.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to be able to swim in information overload, basically.
Right.
And the guide mentions conferences, which are important, but it's not just showing up and getting a name tag, right? It's about networking, debating, really understanding the nuances of the latest research, the potential applications. It's like a crash course in the future of your field,
It makes you wonder how they even find the time, like on top of everything else they're doing. The guide mentions time management, but it doesn't really get into the weeds on that.
No, not really.
Because imagine you're leading a team, you're working towards a big grant deadline, and suddenly, bam, a key experiment throws you a curveball. The results are totally unexpected.
Oh, yeah. Happens all the time.
So now you've got to analyze the data, troubleshoot the experiment, maybe even rethink the whole project, all while keeping your team on track and your stakeholders informed. Talk about pressure.
High stakes for sure.
And it makes me think about that section in the guide about interview prep.
Yeah.
Because those sample questions, they're not just there to trip you up, right? They give you a window into the actual challenges you'd face as a research manager.
Absolutely.
Like, tell us about a time you had to manage conflict on your team. That's not some hypothetical situation. That's Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly. And it highlights how crucial those softer skills really are.
Right.
Emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, being able to motivate your team, even when things get tough, that's what separates the good from the great.
It really is. And those skills, they're especially important because research is so collaborative. Like, the guide talks about interacting with stakeholders, and that can be experts from different fields, even researchers across the globe.
Oh yeah, more and more common now. Teams spread across continents, different time zones, different cultural norms. It's a whole other layer of complexity.
It's like you need to be fluent in more than just science. You need to be fluent in communication, in building bridges, finding common ground,
100%.
making sure everyone feels heard, respected, all of that.
And that ties in directly with what the guide says about cultural sensitivity, ethical considerations, especially when research involves human subjects or could impact vulnerable communities.
It's a good reminder that research doesn't happen in a bubble.
Right.
It has real-world consequences, so research managers, they need to be aware of those ethical dimensions.
Big time.
And speaking of consequences, let's loop back to those perks we mentioned earlier, because the guide does highlight that high level of autonomy that research managers have. You're not just following orders, you're often setting the agenda, designing the research, steering the whole project.
You're the captain of the ship.
That's got to be empowering.
Right, it is. But with great power.
Comes great responsibility.
Exactly. The buck stops with you. You're responsible if the project succeeds or fails, if the budget's managed well, if the research is ethical, all of it.
Which brings us right back to that list of pros and cons.
Yeah.
They're very upfront about the demanding nature of this career path.
Oh yeah, they don't sugarcoat it.
Long hours, pressure to secure funding, constantly needing to stay ahead of the curve in a field that just, never stops changing. It's not for everyone, that's for sure.
Definitely not.
But on the flip side, they also highlight the incredible satisfaction you can get. Imagine leading a team that makes a real breakthrough.
Yeah.
Develops a new treatment, or finds a solution to some, major global challenge. That's got to be hugely rewarding.
No doubt. And I think for a lot of research managers, that sense of purpose,
Yeah.
contributing to something bigger than themselves, that's a huge draw.
The guide talks about how companies, they're picking up on this, and they're using these insights to attract top talent. They're not just looking for someone with a fancy degree and a long list of publications.
Yep.
They want someone with that spark, that drive, to push the limits of knowledge and make a real difference.
They're looking for the innovators, the problem solvers, the ones who truly believe in the power of research to make the world a better place.
It makes you rethink what success even means in a field like this.
Yeah.
It's not just about titles or promotions.
Right.
It's about the impact you have, the things you discover, the knowledge you contribute. And RoleCatcher, they focus on helping people find the right career path, which is great. But I was thinking, what if companies flip the script?
Oh, interesting.
What if they use these same insights not just to fill a position, but to actually build a really thriving research culture?
That's a really good point.
So imagine you're building a research team from scratch. You've got RoleCatcher's guide as your blueprint. What were you prioritizing?
Okay, so technical skills, obviously that's a given.
Great.
But beyond that, I want people who embody those core values we've been talking about. Curiosity, that resilience, the ability to adapt, that genuine passion for pushing the boundaries of what we know.
And we can't forget communication, collaboration. Those are so key in this day and age. You need people who can explain these complex ideas clearly, build consensus, navigate all those interpersonal dynamics of working with a diverse team.
Absolutely. And I'd also be looking for someone who gets the big picture,
Yeah.
Because research is not happening in a vacuum. It's about solving real-world problems, facing those global challenges, maybe even changing the world. So you need someone who can connect the dots, who sees the potential impact of their work.
So it's not just about ticking boxes on a resume.
Right.
It's about finding someone with that spirit of discovery.
Yeah.
Someone who's always hungry for new knowledge, and then figuring out, how do we use this to make a difference?
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so, so exciting. It's always changing, always pushing the limits of what we thought was possible.
It sounds like a wild ride.
Yeah.
Challenging, for sure,
Oh, yeah.
but ultimately incredibly rewarding. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from those nitty-gritty technical skills to those bigger questions about ethics and impact.
We really went from, like, what is a research manager to really understanding what it takes to succeed, to thrive in this kind of role.
So to anyone out there thinking about a career in research management, I say go for it. Dive in, explore those resources, connect with people in the field, and never stop asking questions.
And if you're already on this path, remember, embrace those challenges, celebrate the wins, and never lose sight of the incredible impact your work can have.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
That's a wrap for us today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you back here soon.